Alrighty. How to make a game immersive.
What makes a game immersive? Is it the photorealistic graphics, or the cinematic cutscenes, or the polygon count of an onion?
Oh, that's hot.
What?
That's hot.
Immersion in video games is a widely discussed topic in the gaming industry and is often associated with graphical advancements and realism. But I found that some of the most immersive games I've ever played look like this.
Oh my goodness!
I just finished my first ever playthrough of Fallout 1 a few days ago and was fully invested in the characters. I dove deep into understanding all the factions and their motives, and explored every bit of the wasteland that I could. So even without these onions, I was completely immersed in a game from 1997. So what made Fallout 1 immersive?
Bro, another really great immersive game for me as a little kid was Shadow of the Colossus. Freaking awesome game. Oh my god. There was no cannon fodder, like little tiny enemies. It was simply 16, I believe, bosses. And you play this wanderer type character. And you got a horse, and you got your girlfriend that's sleeping in the castle. So something happened in the beginning. Your girlfriend's asleep, and then you gotta save her. You gotta wake her up. Okay. So you start at the castle, and then you go out, you fight a boss. Some black enigma stuff takes over you. You go into a coma, and you wake back up at the castle. And then you go out and defeat another boss. Okay? And you do that over and over and over again for, I think it was 16 bosses. And then you got a little bit of a story. I'm not going to say anything. A thing that happens at the end. And when I was a little kid, I loved the shit out of that game. The sound, the music, the graphics, even for its time, because I played it on PS2, which was like, it was still really grainy, but I didn't care. I was a little kid. I was just immersed in the game, and it felt awesome.
Immersive for me, and to ask the broader question again, what makes any game immersive? The answer will almost always depend on your own tastes,
Yeah.
but I think there are some elements that objectively make a world feel more alive, and these are the things I find are most important to get me fully invested and immersed in a game's world. Environmental storytelling is a way of delivering the story through the gameplay systems and the world design itself in a non-linear way. It's both visual and auditory storytelling without the need of explicitly telling you what's happening through cutscenes or dialogue. It's the scenery, or the placements of enemies and items, the ambient sounds, or lack thereof, that set the stage and speak for themselves. BioShock is one of the best examples of how a game's environment alone can be effective at telling a story.
Dude, BioShock was actually goated. All of them. All of them were goated. Like these underwater ones, it was just awesome. And the thing that really hit it off for me was it was just so many things. It wasn't one thing. It was a culmination of so many things. It was the HUD looking really old and steampunky. It was the I don't know, the basic construction of the world of I forgot the name of the city. God dang it. It was like old-timey. There was, anytime you're just walking through a map or whatever, there was like old-timey music playing. And it still managed to be a little bit hoary. Not hoary, but like to be like horrific, like a scary game. Because you had these splicers walking around, and they made them path a certain way. So like right here, or like maybe at a different point, you would have seen like the shadow like on the wall walk by and then just run away, and then maybe you go around the corner and it wasn't there. But then you keep walking down, and then you walk into like a big area, and then maybe you get ambushed by a splicer or something. And then you had the big daddies and the little sisters just walking around, just being menaces to society. That was awesome. But yeah, it was a culmination of things. But specifically for BioShock, it was the environment for sure. Because when the BioShock first came out, the water, they usually touted like, oh, look at the water physics, look at the water physics. It was like a when you go into a certain part of the city and there'd be like a big ass window, it would be like an aquarium that you're chilling at. You look outside, you see all the whales, the fishes, the sea life directly outside, and you're like, wow. And then maybe you'd go through like a glass hallway where you'd see like a bunch of things over your head, and maybe the water was like just, I don't know, going like inside because it was cracked a little bit somehow from the pressure. So now you have all these like cool water physics just leaking into the hallway you got to get past. It was a bunch of stuff.
If you were to remove the audio diaries and the characters that speak to you like
this was also one of the games he just mentioned, the audio diaries. This is one of the few games I actually listened to all the audio diaries, because a lot of times when developers stick in those, I don't know, audio logs or like a piece of lore and you have to read it, I am not interested in it at all. But what BioShock did was you pick up like this, what were they called, like voxophones or something? This little recorder thing, and then all of a sudden you see like a picture of someone that's talking, and you play with the subtitles, and then you can you look at the person's face, and then they're saying what they're, and you can either read or just listen, and something is happening to them as they're recording it. And honestly, when you voice act the little side lore things, I am more likely to listen to them. And when I'm more likely to listen to them, I give a shit about the world around me. I mean, whereas if they were to put all of that dialogue into just a readable piece of paper or something, I'm just going to be like, skip, whatever. It's just a thing to collect. But putting it, definitely just voice act those, man, 100%.
Atlas or Tenenbaum, the world of Rapture would still convey an engrossing and haunting story through its visuals. New Year's Day, 1959. This underwater utopia was turned upside down. Chaos ensuing amongst every district, from high society clubs and theaters to farmers markets and fishing ports.
Yeah, look at the
Each
neon.
area does a great job at showing the kind of place Rapture was,
Rapture.
and then what it became after shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
Warnings written out in blood, corpses strung up in grotesque ways, advertisements for different professions that lead to sinister discoveries. Rapture visually represents the potential nightmare of a world with unregulated capitalism and objectivist morality, almost like current year America. In BioShock Infinite, the environments completely embody the theocratic American exceptionalism, and on the surface makes Columbia appear like this perfect, pure Christian society, until you start digging a little bit deeper and peeking into the cracks of their infrastructure, sort of like Mormons in Utah. This is all done through visuals alone. The narratives and the dialogue of the BioShock games are great, but it's the environments that really sell the whole thing.
Yeah.
The narratives and dialogue can only work if the world itself is already believable and established. In the first Dark Souls, there are so many memorable locations and revelations, like venturing deep into Blighttown and seeing just how far your descent to the swamp below will be, first gracing the beauty of Anne Orlando, or navigating an idyllic crystal cave on the way to discover what it hides.
Oh,
But
dang.
I don't think anyone will forget their first time discovering Ash Lake. The haunting music that evokes a remembrance for this home of the ancient dragons, this vast emptiness of a long, strange pathway of sand, the miles of trees still speculated and discussed about today on their true purpose, and to be greeted by an everlasting dragon at the pathway's end. Ash Lake is one of the most fascinating locations in the Souls franchise, and yet we know so little about it, but it forever lives in our mind because of the curiosity and wonder that it elicits. The cool thing about environmental storytelling is that it requires a certain level of deductive reasoning from the player.
Yeah.
It encourages exploration for the player to actively partake in the storytelling through discovery. We are the ones that must connect the dots, determine the morality of certain characters, understand how we fit into the world. It's a design that respects the player's intelligence, like in Fallout New Vegas, and its numerous hints and clues about the backstories of various characters throughout its world. No Bark Noonan might just seem like a crazy old geezer, but do a little bit of digging, and there's a good case to be made that No Bark might just be the chosen one from the first Fallout game.
Oh, shit.
If anyone asks, we never spoke.
Halo Combat Evolved is a game that you might imagine is a fairly straightforward, by-the-books, linear FPS campaign, and in many ways, it is. But it houses a lot of environmental storytelling through its missions, and there's no better example than in
Oh, yeah, right here. anytime you're doing missions on the Halo ring, you can look literally left and right, and you're just greeted by this thing, this little reminder that, hey, this isn't Earth you're on a ring. All right. And as the whole thing with the gravity is like, you can maintain gravity of like on a ring if the ring is just big enough and it's spinning quick enough to, gravity you to the edges or whatever. So anytime, this was something that I took I took this for granted as a little kid, but it was only until subsequent playthroughs that I was like, holy shit, I'm on Halo. I'm on a fucking ring. This isn't the Earth. And I was just like, oh, I want to just go out there. Let me just keep running up the ring.
In the mission 343 Guilty Spark, you land in a foggy swamp. A crashed Pelican dropship is nearby. Inside, you hear a radio transmission about some new kind of hostile enemy. Venturing deeper, and your radar begins to light up with yellow dots, meaning you're being surrounded by an enemy that your radar doesn't recognize.
This is a good-ass mission.
When pushing further, a bunch of Covenant can be seen fleeing the area. You push forward. You come across a few more Covenant, this time holding a defensive line facing...
Bro, the music for this level was creepy as fuck as a little kid. Oh my god, I remember... Like, Halo is not an objectively scary game, but that is the scary level of Halo, is 343 Guilty Spark with you're starting in the swamp, and then you get into this like gigantic facility, and then eventually you have all this music that's like creepy and foreboding, foreshadowing, and then eventually you meet the Flood. Ugh, so good.
The facility. Further in, you find signs of a bloodbath of both Marines and Covenant,
yeah.
A yellow substance raining down from above. And eventually, you encounter a Marine shouting.
Yeah.
Stay back! Stay back! You're not turning me into one of those things! I'll blow your brains out! Get away from me!
So far, we've been soaking in a lot of visual storytelling that heavily foreshadows the remainder of the mission. And after finding a helmet cam with footage of some of these Marines getting attacked, you eventually find yourself encountering that same threat, the Flood. The storytelling of 343 Guilty Spark isn't completely spelled out for you, but if you pay at least a little bit of attention to your surroundings throughout, you're going to pick up on the foreshadowing and some amazing details. My favorite detail in the aftermath is being able to find the bodies of 2 Marines and 2 Jackals on top of a barrier, surrounded...
Oh, wow. I have played this level so many times, but I never put that together. It's only until now that he said it that I realized, oh my god, they were actually fighting with each other, trying to shoot away all the Flood, but in the end, they just died together on top of this crate, trying to defend each other, trying to live. That's really fucking good. Oh my god.
Surrounded by ammunition, implying that the Covenant and the Marines, in this last moment, died fighting together against this new common enemy, holding the line against the Flood. Now this is another great strength of environmental storytelling. You are discovering it while actually playing the game. No need to sit through hours of cutscenes or dialogue, just get straight into the action. And if you pay attention to the environment, you're going to experience the deeper aspects of a story. It's in games like this, or games like Fallout or Dark Souls, where I'm left more to my own devices, that I become more connected to the world and story because it feels like I'm an active participant, rather than just a passive viewer. Now this doesn't mean that dialogue and exposition in games is all bad, though oftentimes it can be.
Yeah.
I think of far too many games that have characters constantly spell things out for you, too many menus to read through with too much information, dumped on you in a short amount of time, and I think that does nothing but turn me and many others off from a game completely.
I mean, I would say it doesn't really... Is this fucking Assassin's Creed? Like, up here, this is like Assassin's Creed, man. But what the fuck is this menu? Is this like modern day Assassin's Creed? Holy shit, that's so weird. Whatever, but it doesn't really... It's not necessarily a turn off because it's like, hey, I bought the fucking game, I'm gonna play it. It's just, I can't really get immersed in the game. It's just all I see is just bricks of text, and I'm like, I'm supposed to understand what, like, just read this and comprehend this? Okay, I'm just overwhelmed by just words, as opposed to, you know, what you just showed me before. 2 humans and 2 jackals sitting on top of a box that I still didn't even realize that was a thing. And I've played that level so many fucking times. Oh my god.
It's not an enjoyable or engaging way to experience a story. It's like being in a college lecture versus a more hands-on learning experience. Humans are visual creatures after all. But that being said, some games are heavy on the dialogue and use it to enrich the story.
Yeah.
BioShock does this, and it fits perfectly because it doesn't disrupt the gameplay to show a cutscene. 90% of its story is happening while you're experiencing it.
Right.
Firewatch is probably the best example of good dialogue that services the environmental storytelling. Most of the dialogue happens over radio between Henry and Delilah, and often they discuss things the player is seeing or witnessing. Henry and Delilah's conversations also feel believable and real because of how well written the conversations are. From fixing a power line to finding teens drinking at the lake, or discussing a research station deep inside the woods, there's always good back and forth of dialogue in Firewatch. And it's becoming more and more rare to find any media with dialogue that actually feels realistic or isn't a big pile of cringe, so games with genuine adult themes and dialogue is another massive way I can become immersed in a story.
Yeah.
I often question why games
But, however, video games are traditionally marketed towards the younger audience, so there's that to take into effect. But that's not to say that there isn't a growing, ever-aging audience that still plays games and still appreciates all of the nuances in, you know, video game stories. You know, it's just... I think the level of storytelling just has to go up when it comes to trying to tell like a good story. And I don't know if certain developers are willing to meet their audiences there, because it takes time and effort to make a believable conversation. Like you said, and Firewatch was one of the few games that did it. So it's not impossible. It's just really hard.
Games are even rated M for mature these days because the dialogue is almost always geared towards the absolute lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
With all the intelligence of a cucumber.
Love the confidence. But before you pull the ripcord, I'm afraid I need to add a bit of a wrinkle.
I think one of the biggest reasons I can't get into Starfield is the writing and the dialogue. That game has so many problems that I'll get into in another video at some point.
Oh,
but one of the biggest is the Gen Z Disney Star Wars cornball dialogue. Their dialogue plays it extremely safe, is super vanilla and predictable, and just downright embarrassing at times. Starfield NPCs don't feel like real characters at any point. They feel like a ChatGPT script. They speak like an actual AI. They behave like AI. And yes, NPCs are technically AI, but characters in these games are at least believable characters that happen to be AI. You get the difference?
Yeah.
Ubisoft isn't known for amazing dialogue in their games, but I just finished another playthrough of Assassin's Creed 2, my personal favorite AC title, because I'm working on a retrospective of the game before the release of Mirage in October.
Nice.
Subscribe so you don't miss it. And it's incredible to pick out many good bits of dialogue in the conversations. Ezio's interactions with every single NPC and character always felt believable and charming. The dialogue is huge for immersion for me in that game.
Dang, I think I should probably go back and play some of the older ACs instead of just going back and playing Black Flag all the time. Some of these older ones, they still slap.
Be careful, Ezio. Do you know who that was? My next conquest. I don't think so, Ezio. That's Caterina Sforza, daughter of the Duca di Milano. Her husband is... Husband? Si. Her husband is the Lord of Forli. That woman is as powerful and dangerous as she is young and beautiful. Sempre come una donna per me.
Oh, dang.
I recently spoke about video game graphics versus art style in a recent video, and I wanted to again touch on art and visual style a bit more to explain how it plays a role in immersing me in a video game. Now, I'm a fan of almost any art style. I may have stronger preferences than others, but these 3 games have wildly different art styles and visual styles. Yet I would consider them some of the most immersive games I've ever played. I think what art style and visuals need to do is be
and World of Warcraft has a very distinct art style, you know, barely you can tell what the heck is going on because the HUD, you can, unless you know what the heck this is, it's like I could tell that this is World of Warcraft even with the minimalistic HUD going on. It's like it's like the little bicycle, the characters are like kind of chunky even with everything scaled down. There's like the chat, well, it's underneath me or whatever, but I can tell just off of this this add-on, this shit down here. This is wow.
Consistent. From Software games always feel like you're inside a painting. The side-scrolling Ori games also achieve that same feeling. Borderlands has a look of a comic book.
Yeah, Borderlands graphics is timeless because they went with the whole cell shading thing. And it stands up to the test of time. It has a lot of replayability.
Hi-Fi Rush is a bit similar with its cell-shaded art style. A game like Battlefield 1 went for a very photorealistic look, and all of these games can be described as immersive to me because they are consistently catering to their visual style. Now I'm going to rag on Starfield a bit more here because there are times that the game looks pretty good, mostly when looking at landscapes or close-up textures, but the lighting of most areas is always inconsistent, with many indoor areas feeling
it just
washed
looks off
out or too dark.
Yeah, like what? We're in a fucking elevator. There should be like LEDs on all four corners right here. Why is there like a downcast shadow like right here making her look like just a bad guy? Like what the hell?
Conflicting light sources, and of course all the characters are often incredibly ugly and even more uncanny than Cyberpunk.
What the fuck?
I don't know how Fallout 3 in New Vegas from over 10 years ago can have a more consistent visual style and art direction, with somehow even less ugly lighting and characters than Starfield, but it really is true.
Bro, what the fuck are these faces? I'm gonna have nightmares.
Starfield is simultaneously one of the best looking games out right now, and also one of the absolute ugliest. And I think it goes back to a matter of believability. A world doesn't have to necessarily be super realistic to be believable. It just has to adhere to its tone, setting, and atmosphere. Games made in the Source engine, like Portal and Half-Life, are some of the most immersive gaming experiences I've ever had. And I didn't play those games until just last year. They have a timeless visual style, and you're given a lot of freedom with the gameplay sandbox that makes those games fully engross you in the experience.
What the fuck?
The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker has a very cartoon and stylized art direction, but I can't help but feel fully immersed when sailing the sea at night, or exploring the various dungeons. Battlefield 1 is a good example of realism done right. It isn't historically accurate to World War I all the time, but it feels believable even though a lot of the weapons and means of battle were only conceptual of that time. It is a video game at the end of the day, so making Battlefield 1 be a trench warfare simulator would probably be incredibly boring.
And besides, I mean, even if you're, this is probably like Battlefield 1 is probably the best example of a AAA studio trying to do a realistic depiction while still maintaining some sort of video game like quality to the game. It's not set out, they're not setting out to do a simulation of World War I or II or whatever one this is, because I'm pretty sure games like that exist, because you wouldn't see like all this HUD shit. You would probably get just maybe a dot as a reticle. You wouldn't see all this like shit right here or this right here or whatever this thing is, that an objective or the ribbon and this right there. There are games that fill those wants for people, and they're out there. But like I said, Battlefield 1 is the best blending of the two. Like, it's still like, you still know it's a video game because of all the shit on the HUD, but when you're looking at the actual game, it's like, wow, this looks really good.
So instead, DICE took weapons and areas of the real world and gamified them into something incredibly immersive.
Good shot.
Soldiers screaming as they charge into battle, the intense sound design, the overcast lighting of the battlefields, the epic soundtracks, the photorealism where it actually counts, and the attention to detail like mud buildup on your weapons. So many things were done to drop the player right inside a real-world war.
And also, in general, for FPS, the trend seems to be, I'm just going to go off and rant a little bit. The more visual clutter you add, the more immersive the game is for FPS. So, there's that. This little scene, I don't know what game this is. If this is still Battlefield, fucking, this looks great. The zero HUD, and you just got control of your character, and it's just like, go. This looks freaking awesome.
But one underrated aspect of immersion that doesn't get a lot of attention is in the interactivity of a game's world.
Ooh.
If a game has a train, can you hop on and ride it? Can I kill any NPC in the game, even the named and important ones? If I have a map of the world, is it in a menu, or does my character actually pull out a map and read it?
The
Far
little
Cry
things.
2, Firewatch, and Sea of Thieves do maps perfectly. Or using your Pip-Boy in Fallout to
Oh.
access the entire
The fucking goated ass Pip-Boy. Ugh. This was so good in Fallout. Ugh. So good.
entirety of your UI is another great example of in-game interactivity. It lessens the layers of video gaminess and makes even the menus feel in-universe. Again, Starfield really struggles here with 60% of the gameplay and exploration all taking place inside menus and loading screens, rather than say a more clever system like what No Man's Sky has implemented. Also, why is there no gore in that game? Isn't the game rated M for mature? Why Bethesda went out of their way to remove gore from Starfield despite being a staple in every game since Fallout 3 is just beyond me. It makes the game feel much less reactive to your violent actions when enemies just kind of fall over. But I digress.
Oh god, I hope they don't fuck up Elder Scrolls 6. Oh, come on. Bro, I remember playing Oblivion and Skyrim, and you go into these like whatever camps, and there's just like animal carcasses just like cut up all different ways. There's guts, there's blood everywhere. Some of the places have like human like remains. There's just like arms and limbs, and you can like pick them up and like throw them and shit. Oh, I hope they don't. Hope he doesn't fucking ruin, what do you call it, Elder Scrolls 6.
That's enough about Starfield.
Yeah.
So what makes a game immersive?
Tons of
Well, I'm
things.
going to try and sum it up in a short paragraph. It's a sense of grandeur, mystery, and player discovery, world building through character dialogue, and environmental storytelling. A lot of show, don't tell.
Yes.
In-game interactivity, and a consistent art and visual direction. This is what immerses players in a game, and so many different types of games can reach that criteria. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. What immerses you in a video game?
God dang. Oh,
What makes
bro, this was such a good video. This was so nice. Like, it's a combination of a bunch of things that like get me like immersed into a video game and make me forget that it's a video game. And you outlined them like beautifully. It's awesome. Like, god dang. I was still like hooked over that Halo thing. That little tiny, there's 2 humans and 2 jackals on the box. That was crazy. I never picked that up. That was so good. Yeah. God dang. That's all I got to say, really. Not much, man. This is a goated ass video. I like it. I want to see more. So, yeah, man, that's pretty much it. All right. So, yeah, take it easy, guys. Later.